Welcome back to Your Career Podcast. If you ever feel stuck in your career or you need a little clarity in order to manage your career moving forward, or you're looking for a new job, visit janejacksoncoach.com. I've plenty of free downloads for you and a lot of career management support that will help to set you well on your way.
Welcome to Jane Jackson Careers, a podcast that takes your career to the next level. Here's your host, Jane Jackson, author of Amazon Careers bestseller, Navigating Career Crossroads.
Well, hello. Now, this is a very special episode because in 2 days' time, on the 7th of November in Sydney, Australia, the LinkedIn Ninja Down Under, Gillian Bullock, and I will co-host our 9th LinkedIn Local Sydney event with our panel of LinkedIn experts to raise funds to help our drought-stricken farmers in New South Wales. The event will be held at Stone and Chalk in the Sydney Central Business District, and we hope that you will support us on this important cause. Now, you can find us if you look for LinkedIn Local Sydney on eventbrite.com. Now, today I am delighted to introduce to you one of the co-founders of the LinkedIn Local movement, because together with Anna McAfee from Coffs Harbour, Ryan Troll from Washington, and Manu Goswami from New York, Alex has founded this amazing connecting, networking in a authentic environment movement. Now, this is a not-for-profit LinkedIn Local movement, and it sparked events in over 60 countries and over 360 cities around the globe within only 12 months. We bring thousands of people together to take online networking offline. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Alexandra Galviz. She was head of training and development for a foreign exchange broker by the time she was only 24 years old. Now, finding herself a round peg in a square hole, she started sharing her thoughts on LinkedIn on career development to a student audience. And she began to achieve widespread recognition and began consulting on matters related to personal branding and social media. One of her passions is working with social mobility charities, upskilling the next generation through employability workshops and inspiring keynote speeches, sharing her own career journey in and out of the corporate world. In December 2017, LinkedIn named Alexandra one of the top 12 most influential writers in the UK. She now runs her own consultancy, training companies on personal branding and how to leverage social platforms like LinkedIn to grow their business. And now let's welcome Alexandra Galviz to the show. Hi, Alex.
Hi, how are you?
I'm really good. It's so nice to talk to you again. We met when I was on holiday in London, and now here we are. We're talking via Zoom, and it's really good to hear your voice again, because I know that there's been so much going on in your career and your business recently. But before we get into that, how about, just to kick us off, you tell us a little bit about your career journey, as this podcast is all about career journeys and career transition. So what were your early career aspirations when you were a little girl?
So early on, it was a combination. Well, I kind of went through a few different phases. At one point, I wanted to join the RAF because I was in the Air Cadets when I was younger. So just to spend a lot of time kind of flying planes, going camping, marching, that sort of stuff. And so that kind of influenced me kind of quite a bit in my early teens. And then I got really into art. And so at one point I wanted to be an artist. And I still paint to this day. And then that kind of transitioned into like wanting to do architecture. But I was never particularly keen on science. So physics was just not my forte. I just liked the idea of drawing buildings and photographing buildings. So that kind of idea fell by the wayside. And then it was actually an internship in the city when I was about just turned 18. I worked for an insurance company. And that really kind of opened my eyes to the world of finance and really kind of gave me a taste of what a potential sort of job could be like. And I sort of became fascinated with that world.
So, well, that was quite a lot of changes that you had when you were little, from being in the RAF to being an artist in architecture and then insurance. And so being an intern in insurance, how long did you stay there and how did your career progress in that area?
So I did that internship for about 3.5 months. And really, I mean, I think I just learned so much. I was really fortunate that the company I worked for had never had an intern. So they didn't really know what you were meant to do with an intern. So and I'd never been an intern. So we were kind of figuring it out as I went along. And the more I sort of got involved and kind of took my initiative and kind of, asked how I could help or what I could do for them to kind of alleviate the workload, the more they gave me. So I got exposed to a lot of things that, an 18-year-old interning doesn't. Initially, they hired me to do teas and coffees. And that's kind of what I expected it to be as well, given that I was quite young. But the more they saw that I was sort of capable, the more they kind of got me more involved. And then they ended up hiring another intern to do the teas and coffees. So that kind of really opened my eyes to, quite enjoying the industry, quite liking kind of this fast-paced. I was pretty much at a very high level as well. So working directly with the CEO and with the senior management. So being exposed to that quite young kind of gave me huge aspirations of, oh yeah, I want to reach kind of where, that CEO is or where my manager was at the time, and kind of gave me that, I guess, that experience, but also that, person to those role models essentially to look at going forward.
And did you have a mentor who was helping you to understand the world of corporate?
I guess for me, my mentor was very much my manager at the time. And I was really fortunate because she was a brilliant manager. She very quickly picked up on things that I didn't like doing, that, stuff like presenting or talking in meetings, and sort of encouraged me to get, start to be a little bit more out there and be a bit more confident in what I was doing. And I guess to a certain extent, even, the CEO of that company and his PA were always really encouraging towards the work that I was doing. So that really, helped and gave me a lot of confidence. I was capable of doing, a lot of things.
When we were having a drink and a chat in London a few months ago, and you were telling me about your career journey, it really was a very fast trajectory. I think because, well, obviously talented, intelligent young woman who wanted to progress as well. And then you ended up, let's just have a quick look at your notes, you ended up as head of training and development for a foreign exchange broker by the time you were 24. So in the space of 6 short years, you really progressed quickly. What do you think was your secret to this rapid progression? Was it, like your thirst for knowledge, or the fact that you went on some additional training courses, or what do you think it was, in addition to obviously ability, that really helped you to quickly progress?
I have this knack of creating roles that don't exist. So, for example, I realized this quite early on in my second internship. So after I did my first internship, I thought, this has been a great opportunity. I've learned so much. I've gained a lot of contacts. I need to do this again. And I didn't need to do an internship, not the first time or the subsequent times. But I realized that I was studying a French degree. And unless I was going to get some form of business experience, I wasn't going to be able to I was going to struggle to get into that industry. And so my game plan was to intern every summer in different business sectors in order to gain those contacts and that experience. So by the time I graduated, I got headhunted straight away by a company, given that I had, 1 year of experience already. And in that first company, I stayed there for about a year and then kind of got itchy feet of like, I need more, I need to do more, and saw the opportunity to create a broader role for myself. And, you know, being quite open and frank with my boss, we kind of managed to do that. And I got promoted after a year. And that kind of same thing happened in my second internship, where I wasn't particularly happy with what I was doing. So again, open communication with my manager. This isn't what I came here to do. It's not, I feel like I'm wasting my time. And then again, they moved me into a different, sector of the internship. So I think for me, it was that communication and relationship I had with my managers, I think has obviously led me to kind of go down those paths. And I just genuinely think like emotional intelligence and relationship and people skills are really important. And that's kind of what I think that where it's come from, because academically I probably wasn't the brightest person. Like people always are quite surprised that I wasn't that, A student. And I think that IQ and EQ are completely different things. And whilst my IQ is not very high, my EQ is pretty high. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
And with the changing world of work these days as well, emotional intelligence is so important, because it's all to do with the relationship development. As AI starts to take over and we can automate so many roles now that are more repetitive, we need to have people who will always be able to communicate well and take initiative, which is obviously what you did. You took initiative, you communicated clearly, you let people know, hey, I spot a gap here and I can fill it. And it's almost like, putting your hand up for something. Whereas too many people, I think, wait for opportunity to knock. It sounds like you take the bull by the horns and think, okay, hey, I'm going to create my own opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think the same thing sort of went for pay rises as well. Like I know that that's quite a taboo topic to speak of, but I mean, I climbed up salary-wise really quickly because I always asked, and I always pushed sort of past that boundary of, is that too much or too little? And it's like, well, what's the worst that can happen? They'll say no. And every time I got a yes. So I think it's a question of like having the kind of courage to just like own it and own your skills and your qualities and what you bring to the table, and be able to also physically show, this is what I bring and this is what I think I'm worth.
That's such a good point, because there are so many articles that actually right now seems to be trending that women are not stepping up and really owning what they can actually do. And one of the things that typically a lot of women don't do is ask for what they're worth. And they tend to accept what people give them. Whereas you've turned that on its head to say, hey, this is what I can do. Let's negotiate. And I think it would be such a good thing, because I love negotiation. It's just fun. Right? Yeah. You never know. If you don't ask, you don't get, do you? Whereas if you do ask, it's surprising how many people actually say yes. And so I think that's going to be inspiring to a lot of women who have thought, oh, I'm afraid to ask for anything in case the answer is no. But to be quite honest, if the answer is no, well, you just reframe it and you can ask again a little bit later on, yes?
Exactly. Yeah. Completely agree.
Now, you got to the stage in your career where you decided to take a little bit of a break to focus on your values, your passions, and your skills, right? And that's the time when you started to write on LinkedIn and publish articles on LinkedIn. And that has led to all sorts of interesting things. So can you tell us that story, Alex?
Yeah, so I was in this role of head of training and development by the time I was 24, and for a very long time, since I was 18, since that story of that first internship, I'd sort of aspired to get into that kind of position. Technically, like my goal was, by the time I'm 30, I'm going to be, in management. I'm going to earn a really good salary. I'm going to travel internationally and have all the luxuries that come with that. And then I got it by the time I was 24, and I was like, 1 second, that's a lot earlier than I'd planned. And also it just doesn't quite feel like I imagined it would feel like. And that for me was kind of a bit of a, getting the rug pulled out underneath me. I was very lost, shall we say. And so it was it was actually kind of in my role that I started to figure out who I was, started to look quite internally, given that I didn't have a huge amount of experience in training and development. I got sent on a lot of courses to then bring internally. And what I realized is the more that I looked at, coaching, mentoring, personal development, sales, I started to realize that I was actually really in the wrong place, that my values no longer aligned with the financial services, that I no longer aspired to earn a lot of money, that instead I was after purpose and meaning. And whilst I loved the training and development element, I was doing it to the wrong audience. So I wasn't particularly keen on training, salespeople about foreign exchange products. It just didn't do it for me. So what I do now is very similar, but it's with products that I love or subjects that I love with people that I love to work with. Mm-hmm. So not entirely different. And then the blogging on LinkedIn kind of actually started when I was in that job. So I started blogging when I was in my first graduate job. I decided to start writing on LinkedIn around career development, to basically kind of impart, I had a very strange, university experience in which I interned in business every single summer. So I'd accumulated a huge amount of knowledge through just all of those learning experiences. And I thought, I really want to encourage students to do the same thing I did, because I saw how many of my friends, qualified with firsts or 2-1s, which was better than I did at universities, better than I went to. And they was really struggling to find jobs. Some had masters, some had degrees in finance or business, but no one was hiring them because they didn't have the relevant experience or some form of experience. And so I wanted to write to say, this is why you should be doing internships. This is what I got out of it. And slowly I started to build like a student audience on there. And so by the time I'd left my corporate job, conversations had really changed. I was talking a lot more around employee engagement, personal development, all sorts of, sort of HRE business topics. And I decided to leave my job in February of last year. Once I'd kind of figured out, okay, I no longer want to be here. It wasn't very planned. I had a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to a work situation and thought, do you know what, I'm out of here, and just, strolled into my boss's office and handed in my resignation, as so many people dream about. And that was pretty much it. I hadn't thought about it more than like 2 hours, but it just felt like a gut instinct of, you've reached your limit. I'd had a lot of burnout there, and a lot of stress, anxiety related to work. And I just felt like mentally I couldn't go on any longer in that kind of environment. And so I decided to take 6 weeks out and went to India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. And it was a bit of a running joke that people were like, oh, are you going to find yourself? And I was just thinking, no, I did all of that work for the last year and a half. I'd gone to all the personal development seminars, workshops, you name it. So I knew who I was. I knew what was important to me, what my values were, what my passions were, what I wanted to do. But it was more so that I just needed to get away from the city and get away from that environment and kind of realign myself to that, truthfully.
What an interesting time. And then what's so interesting is that in December that year, 2017, you were named as the top voice, the top 12 most influential writers in the UK.
Yes, on LinkedIn. Yeah, that happened in December. So that was a really nice, lovely thing to happen, given that I'd been writing there for about almost 2.5 years at the time. Mm-hmm. And, for me, what was incredible was that the other people on the list, you had Theo Paphitis, which is known as one of the Dragon's Den dragons, and then you had a director from McKinsey, and all these like very high profile or very senior people, and then you have like little old me. And I thought that was really nice because it was, a change in conversation. I think on LinkedIn we see so much of business articles and business advice, etc. And I was writing the complete opposite. I was talking about mental health in the workplace. I was talking about bullying. I was talking about the broken education system we have, like all things that we don't tend to talk about or are a little bit taboo in the corporate world. Like these were the conversations I started, and to have kind of been named that purely based on like the statistics and engagement, etc. Like that was nice, because I think that it was just important for people to start having these conversations.
Yeah, being nominated Top Voice 2017 on LinkedIn is a fabulous achievement. But also, I think it's like you are the voice of the millennials now in the workforce, having experienced the ups and downs as well. And like you're known as Authentic Alex. So basically everything you write about is authentic and it comes from the heart. And now, earlier on that year, you linked up with a lady in Coffs Harbour, Anna McAfee, and became a co-founder of LinkedIn Local, which is, LinkedIn Local Sydney. I co-host them with Gillian Bullock here in Sydney, but you're the actual co-founder together with Anna and Manu and Ryan as the original founders of LinkedIn Local, which has become a global phenomenon.
Yes, I mean, when we got started, I think we had no idea what we'd gotten ourselves into. It's just been such a whirlwind over the past year, and it's been amazing to watch. I was connected with Anna, and she was actually following some of my content, and I was following some of hers, and saw her post about, wanting to meet up with her connections and taking them offline and hashtagging it LinkedIn Local. And at the time I was doing something very similar, but on a one-to-one basis, and I hashtagged it virtual to reality, where I was taking my connections offline and going for a coffee or for a lunch. And at the time it wasn't really a done thing. And then slowly, like once I saw Anna's post, I kind of reached out to her and I said, what is it that you're trying to do? It sounds very similar to what I've been doing. And so we got on a call, and obviously got on a call with Manu in New York and Eric in Brussels. And we started talking about what could we do, and how it could work, and what was the intention. And then we all did one at the same time in June last year, and then fed back to each other what worked, what didn't. And then we kind of continued doing them on a monthly basis. And it wasn't until September that it really snowballed, for two reasons, I think. Mainly, one was that Manu did a post that got viewed 1.4 million times because Jeff Weiner had commented on it, the CEO of LinkedIn. And then the other one was that for the first time we had a piece of content, a video content. So someone had asked, can I film your event? And all of a sudden it was something that people could see and understand and watch. Whereas before we were always talking about it, or we had photos, but we couldn't really have a feel for it. And people were slightly confused. They're like, is it just a networking thing? Having to explain that was a lot easier via video. And then that piece of content got shared multiple times across the platform. And then we got inundated with requests of how do we set one up, what's it about, etc. And that's where Ryan came in and asked us, do you guys need a website? I'm happy to build one for you. And so then Ryan became part of the founding team as well. We got the website up and running. Then we started onboarding people. And, ever since it's just grown tremendously. We're now in over 60 countries. We are in over 360 cities. And I believe we now have over 600 hosts around the world, which is just insane.
It's amazing how very, very quickly it's grown, because Gillian and I had our first LinkedIn Local Sydney event in November 2017, and that's just grown exponentially already. And now in Australia, not only Coffs Harbour, which is the place where it all started, it's now in Sydney and Brisbane and Perth and Adelaide and all these other places in between as well. And the same in America and across Europe. And it's just amazing because there are so many posts about, LinkedIn Local Marseille. It's
crazy. I know
fun.
the other day on Instagram, and it was like LinkedIn Local Iran, and I was talking to someone in Hawaii. It's just
and all across India, it's in Hong Kong and Singapore and the Philippines. It really is phenomenal. And to think that it just started as a hashtag.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I always say to people, what we did, it was nothing new. I think it just came at the right time, with the right, environment, because I think, there's a lot of discussion right now about how technology and social media is separating us and how people are disconnected and feeling lonely. And this was doing the opposite. It was using social media and technology to bring people together offline and create those meaningful connections again. And I think that, if it wasn't important to people, if it wasn't fruitful for people, like people would stop going or people would stop posting. But it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and more known around the world. So it's been amazing to be a part of, and obviously now build a business off the back of it. So that's the exciting part.
Yeah, it's such a wonderful success story. And I think one of the reasons why, excuse me, why people like the LinkedIn Local ethos is because like we do over here with our events as well, we say it's a no pitch, no sales environment. It's not a business building, come and network and here's my business card, call me sort of environment. It's just getting to know the real people behind the LinkedIn profiles. And we get so much positive feedback from it, and it must be the same everywhere. And I've just found that within that LinkedIn Local community, it's not just the hosts who get to meet so many amazing people, it's the people who attend who become such good friends with each other as well.
Definitely. And I think people appreciate, the people that bring those communities together. And for so many different reasons.
Yeah, and so now with the way that it's evolving, and it's the name is changing to LocalX.
So the name is staying the same. Yeah, I think we've had a bit of confusion with that. The name is always going to stay the same. It is and always will be the LinkedIn Local community. And what it essentially is we're building a technology platform called LocalX. And LocalX will essentially be powering LinkedIn Local, but not only them, but other communities. So what we're trying to do is encourage businesses, organizations, universities to basically, bring their communities offline with these events, and having the platform and technology that will help curate that experience a lot easier, because we've listened to all of our hosts around the world about, the struggles they have with our website, with Eventbrite, with speaking to their attendees, getting feedback, like they're using lots of different platforms, communications isn't great. So what we're trying to do is build everything into one platform so that they don't have to go anywhere else but this one platform. And what we've found is just by talking about doing that, we've had a lot of interest from other businesses saying, will you be white labeling this product? And at that point we were like, oh, okay. Because we've always built LinkedIn Local for the community, and everything that we've done to develop it has been from the feedback of the community. And now we've started to realize actually we're building something that could be valuable to a lot of other kind of organizations.
I think, it's such a fantastic story. And I think just bringing communities, whether it's at universities or businesses, internally, externally, maybe industries getting together as well, there are so many possibilities for this to grow even greater than it already has, because just in one short year, the growth has been phenomenal. Now, what about Alex herself? Okay, because now you run your own consultancy. So tell us about your consultancy, Alex.
Yeah, so I kind of do two, three things mainly. I basically coach and train mainly C-suite and entrepreneurs on how to create their personal brands specifically on LinkedIn. So I do that on like a one-to-one basis, but I also go into businesses now, mainly startups, and help them create their individual personal brands, but also their company personal brands on LinkedIn. And I've done that since I left my job. It's sort of the main thing that I do. And the other thing that I do is graduate development. So I go to quite big corporates like Deloitte, Shell, and help them with their training and development for their graduates. So they bring me in more as a sort of influencer to deliver someone a bit more relatable, to deliver things around soft skills, personal development, personal branding, networking, confidence building, all those sort of skills. So that's kind of my real passion area. It's really why I left my job. I also do that with social mobility charities and universities. So going into them as well and helping them with very similar things. So that's either done through workshops, or they're also done through public speaking gigs. So rooms full of like hundreds of students, basically. And then I do a lot of public speaking that kind of fall under either three of those. So LinkedIn personal branding, graduate development, or LinkedIn local.
What an amazing trajectory your career path has been, and also done with such heart as well, because you do so much for the charities, which makes such a difference. And you know what? Just this word came to mind as you were talking. You're like a millennial mentor. Mentor to millennials for sure, especially with the graduates, who might be feeling a little bit lost, like how do we compete, how do we progress? Because so often graduates, they go through the rotations maybe for 2 years, depending on the organization and what they plan. It might be 6 months here or 3 months here, and then move on, and then they feel quite special for about 2 years, and then after that, so, okay, finish the grad program now what? And then they get stuck. And so having someone like you to help them with their soft skills so that they are able to negotiate or create a role for themselves, it's really just to do with confidence building as well. So great job. So what's your business called? Do you trade under your own name, or is there Authentic Alex? Okay, fantastic. Well, I think everyone needs to watch out for Authentic Alex, because you're a force to be reckoned with, and it was so much fun meeting you in London and now interviewing you on the podcast. Fantastic. And so it's early in the morning, early-ish in London, and it's about 9 o'clock at night in Sydney. So I'm really glad that we were able to link up. And so if someone wants to find you, obviously all they need to do is to look for Authentic Alex on LinkedIn. But is there a website you would like to direct people to?
Yeah, it's www.authenticalex.com.
And what about your social media handles on Instagram?
So Instagram, it's @theauthenticalex.
Okay. And what I'll do, Alex, is I'll have this in my show notes on janejacksoncoach.com, so people can come listen to the podcast and click through and visit and find more about you there as well. So I appreciate your time. Thanks so much, Alex. It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for having me, Jane.
Talk to you again soon. If you enjoyed this podcast, look for Your Career Podcast on iTunes and leave a review. And for all the career management support you need to create your dream career, visit janejacksoncoach.com and join my Careers Academy for live career webinars, group coaching, one-on-one coaching support, as well as my online career development courses. Isn't it time you found your dream job?
You've been listening to Jane Jackson Careers. Sign up to receive regular career advice at janejacksoncoach.com.